Kickball. Kickball is a fun game that involves two teams. One team is the kicking team. Their job is to kick the ball and run the bases. The other team is the fielding team. They stand out in the field, and their job is to try and get the kickers out. The rules of kickball are very similar to baseball and softball. So if you play baseball or softball, the rules are very similar to kickball. The object of the game is to get more runs, which is another name for points, than the other team. You get a run or a point once you have kicked the ball and made it around all of the bases without getting out. The fielding team will try to get you out once you have kicked the ball. If you get out, you go back to your team and wait your turn to kick again. Once the fielding team has gotten 3 outs, then the teams switch, and the team that was just the fielding team now becomes the kicking team, and the team that was just kicking becomes the fielding team, and then they get a chance to kick and run the bases and try to get runs and points. So the kickball field is designed the same as a baseball diamond. So if you play baseball or softball, it's designed the same way. There are 4 bases: home base, first base, second base, and third base. A base is something you stand on, which makes you safe from getting out. When the kicking team is running the bases, they must do so in the correct order. So when you're running the bases, you must do it in the correct order. You can't run to any base you would like. There's a certain order you must run. And this is what a kickball field looks like with all the bases labeled. Each kicker will start and kick from home base. The pitcher will roll the ball, and the kicker will try and kick the ball, then has to run to first base before the fielding team can get them out. So if we look at the picture of the kickball field, down here is home base. This is where the kickers always start, and they will kick the ball from. Right here in the middle, the pitcher will roll the ball down, and the kicker will kick the ball from home plate. Then it is their job to run all the way to first base. So we said this is first base. It is called first base because it is the first base that you run to. The fielding team will try to get the kicker out either by bringing the ball to first base before the kicker touches it, catching the ball in the air, or tagging the kicker with the ball. So if the fielding team does any of those, then the kicker is out and goes back to their team. So the pitcher will roll the ball to the home plate, the kicker will kick it, and then try to run to first base. If he gets to first base before the fielding team gets there, then that person will be safe and stays at first base. However, if the fielding team catches the ball in the air, or they get the ball and they bring it to first base before the kicker does, or they tag the kicker before they touch first base, then that person is out and they have 1 out. If the kicker gets out, the kicker goes back to his or her team, and the fielding team gets 1 out. Once the fielding team gets 3 outs, then they switch positions, and the kicking team will go out in the field, and the fielding team will go become kickers. If the kicker makes it to first base without getting tagged, the kicker can wait there until the next person kicks, or can run to the next base. So if the person kicks the ball and they go from home base, run, and they make it to first base, they can either continue running and go to the next base, or they can wait there until the next person kicks. After first base, the next base that they're going to run to is what's called second base. Second base gets its name because it is the second base that you run to. An important rule in kickball is that only one person can be on a base at a time. If 2 kickers are on the same base, one must leave and go to a different base. Bases cannot be shared between the kicking team. So, if we had a friend that was on first base and someone kicked the ball and the next person was running, both people cannot stand on first base. That first person who kicked must then leave and go to second base. You cannot have 2 people standing on the same base. So once that person's running to first base, the kicker that was already there must then run and go to second base because 2 people cannot share the same base. After second base, the runner must go to the next base safely. After the second base, the runner will then go to third base. It is called third base because it is the third base that you run to. So if our kicker was at second base, then they would want to run down to third base. Right down here is third base. Now the same rules can apply. They can still get out the same way in kickball as when they were kicking it. So if the fielding team gets to third base before they do, or they get tagged, then they can also get out at third base. Once again, only one person is allowed on third base also. Lastly, the runner must then finish back at home base. If a kicker kicks the ball and runs around all the bases and makes it back to home base without getting out, the kicker gets his or her team a point. So if we have a friend at third base right here and they make it all the way back to home base and they touch home base without getting out, they get their team a point. So the object of the kicking team is to kick the ball, make it to first base, second base, third base, then all the way back to home. If they touch home base, make it all the way around without getting out, they get their team a point. But you must go in the correct order and must touch all of the bases. If you run around and go near first base but don't touch it, it doesn't count. You must touch all of the bases, make it all the way around, and then touch home base, and you get your team a point. Each kicking team and fielding team will be given the same amount of chances to try and score as many runs as they can. Once the game is over, the team that gets the most amount of runs wins the game. Kickball is a great way to exercise and have fun. Many adults like to play kickball and sometimes have leagues that they play in as well. So if you look at these kickball pictures, we have a picture of the pitcher rolling the ball, a picture of the kicker kicking the ball before they run to first base. We have someone on the fielding team tagging a kicker running to the base. We said that if you tag them, they will get out, and that is 1 out of 3. You need to get 3 outs before you switch. So you can tag them, or you can run to the base, or you can catch the ball in the air. If you also catch the ball before it touches the ground in the air, you can get that counts as an out also. And then our last picture over here, we see a picture of some friends playing kickball. We have the pitcher in the middle roll the ball, and the kicker about to kick it at home base, and then that kicker will then run to first base, and then to second base right behind, and then over in the side is third. And if they make it back to home base and touch, they will get their team a point. The team that gets the most points wins the game.